So guys, this particular session I would like to give a very high level introduction to what exactly is Azure DevOps. Most importantly, we are going to see a roadmap for learning Azure DevOps. We are going to learn who can be the best candidates for learning Azure DevOps. Very interesting question. Do I need to have a knowledge of programming language if I want to learn Azure DevOps? Always confusing point. I will pretty well explain what is that you should know and what you don't necessarily need to know. And of course, once you are having the knowledge of Azure DevOps, how can you present it to the world for getting a new job or probably upskilling yourself? So that's what we are going to see in these particular sessions. On Teams, you want to see my screen, okay? Yeah, should be good now. So I just opened the first syllabus document, because if somebody can compile the correct syllabus, if you know the order in which you are going to learn the topics properly, automatically you have achieved a big milestone. The major problem in learning on your own or learning through a subject matter expert, like on Azure DevOps, you can call me as an SME, subject matter expert. The major difference is going to be we, with our experience, have compiled content in such a way that when presented, it becomes easy for you to follow. And if you are planning to learn Azure DevOps on your own, the biggest challenge is to properly sequence the topic, to know what topics to learn and when to feel confident. Probably many of you might have already tried and attempted learning DevOps on your own. Many people keep texting me on WhatsApp. I've already started watching your videos on YouTube. For last 1 month, 1.5 months, I have been following you on YouTube and I have decent amount of knowledge on Azure DevOps. Rather, some people even go to the extent of confirming that with the videos alone on YouTube, which are absolutely free, they would able to also clear the certification exam. Maybe possible, I'm not denying it. But that is not a complete content. That is very unorganized couple of videos from here and there randomly presented to you. The best way to learn English is start learning the alphabets. And the best way to learn alphabets is learn A, B, C, D, E, F, G in proper order. You cannot learn in random order. You cannot say I learned S, I learned R, I learned W, I learned Z, I learned B, I learned K, I learned T, and I learned ABCD. No, you might have learned all the 26 characters, but it would be very difficult to pronounce them if you're not remembering them in proper order. If you're asked to say from A to Z, and if you're not able to say one alphabet also, you are probably going to fail. And if you put that in random order, guarantee you will fail. But if you put it in proper sequential order, A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, you will definitely pass. Why? Because everybody knows it in the proper order. So this is the science of learning. You have to repeat certain things and you have to connect certain things. But most important, you have to put them in proper order and learn. And that's one of the difference which we, the trainers, are going to provide to you when you're learning the course. Said so, not necessarily everyone would be possibly able to afford the course which I am offering because it has cost. At least take this particular syllabus from our website. You can go to the website. I'll take you there. best.nettraining.com. Don't go by its name. You have here the entire course already available. Microsoft Azure DevOps. Entire course is available. So here you can download the syllabus. Entire syllabus, what I am presenting to you, you can see here. So this could be a good starting point, even if you are not joining this particular course for whatsoever reason. Especially, I respect financial reasons. Everybody may not be able to afford it. Ideally, this is an investment anybody is going to make. But we have our own boundaries. It's definitely a commercial course. It's not a free course. Only today's session is open to all. And thereafter, it is going to be restricted to only the registered students. So the same content, you are getting it. Start learning in this order. If you're not joining my course, learn it in this particular order. This is little improved than what is already there on the site. Here I have added labs. For every topic, what labs you are going to do, those also I have added over here. Just to get you a better picture. Yeah, I don't mind sharing this document with anyone. Just text me on WhatsApp. In the respective group, I'll put it there. And you can take it from the WhatsApp groups if you are there in the WhatsApp group. If not, I'll probably share my number at the end. You can send me the text. I'll share this document with you there. So back to the roadmap. What I'm explaining you now is a roadmap of learning Azure DevOps. So we are going to first begin with understanding how did actually DevOps evolve? What were the problems in the industry in the past, especially when they were using agile programming model, that this problem has come, and then we will see how the solution DevOps has resolved those problems over here. To implement DevOps, what all challenges one will have to face, that we are going to see over here. At the end of this particular first module, you are going to have a very broad picture of do's and don'ts of a DevOps engineer. As a DevOps engineer, what role you are going to play in your organization, especially as a DevOps expert to be precise. So this becomes a very crucial and very important chapter for anybody who is not performing the role of DevOps already in their organization. So that's pretty important thing over here. That will be the first chapter. Following that, how DevOps practices were implemented in the past and how these DevOps practices are today implemented in context of Azure DevOps. How did Microsoft align Azure DevOps to the industry requirement for people who want to start from scratch or people who have already started using other DevOps tools and gradually may want to move to Azure DevOps. Trust me guys, today Azure DevOps is one of the most popular platform for DevOps practices. Because the very crux of DevOps is in collaboration, and Azure DevOps is like a single tool by same vendor, Microsoft, for performing multiple things. Unlike in the past, we used to go for different things to different people. But now, here we get everything at one place. Right from the time the project started to the time the project is delivered, and then also the maintenance, the entire life cycle, what all tools are needed, all those are provided by Azure DevOps. So here we make DevOps move to Azure DevOps. That's what we will get into over here. Natural extension to Azure DevOps. Here we will set up our Azure DevOps account. Basically, in a DevOps portal, we will create an organization. We will create user. One of the biggest challenges today is to have something called as parallel jobs, so that using these parallel jobs we should be able to perform our operations. So how these parallel jobs can be requested from Microsoft so that we can create CI/CD pipelines and execute them, that also we are going to see here. How we can connect Azure DevOps to an Azure Active Directory of an organization and grant users in the Active Directory the permissions to manage the DevOps practices or DevOps project. Or if you don't want to use Active Directory, how can we do the same? By just inviting the users directly into Azure DevOps so that we can perform the collaboration. I see somebody writing on YouTube that I am not audible. Can somebody confirm? Am I audible on YouTube?
I know you're audible on Teams. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, Shubham has confirmed I am audible. So maybe problem at their end. Okay, so back to the class. So Azure DevOps history, how did actually it evolve? See, I know the origin of Azure DevOps in 1996, 97, when I was probably using something like Microsoft Visual Source Safe. Rather, I would put it there, the origin of what we have today as DevOps. So here we are going to have introduction to Azure DevOps. One very important thing I would like to reiterate here, multiple times I have told, Azure is different and Azure DevOps is different. When we say we are learning Microsoft Azure, or I am teaching Microsoft Azure, or we are using Microsoft Azure, we are using Azure as a platform for our application deployment. Our applications are deployed on Azure, and from there they become functional for people across the globe. So I can use my own ways of deploying applications into maybe Azure App Services, maybe Azure Virtual Machine, maybe something like AKS, Azure Kubernetes Services, or maybe Azure Function App, or maybe Azure Container Instance. And these applications probably can connect to a SQL Server database which is deployed in Azure. And these applications also would use a storage account for managing their binary files like PDF files, JPG files, media files in something like Azure Storage, blob storage. So these are all different Azure services which are going to work together in execution of your application. That's what we call it as Azure, as a platform. Think of Azure as operating system for Microsoft data center where our applications are deployed, and on top of that operating system our applications are working. That means below is the data center and on top is the application. Azure is managing those for us with the help of various services which we are going to use. To deploy these applications in a very systematic way, in a very organized manner, letting the developers collaborate with each other, ensuring that first our application goes into lower environment, maybe something like dev environment, and then getting promoted to say something like QA environment, UAT environment, and then finally going into production environment. We want a systematic automated process for deploying the applications on this particular platform and redeploying again and again after making changes. And that too in a very agile way, very fast we should be able to do it with least amount of human intervention, with proper auditing and logging. Then we are supposed to make use of Azure DevOps. So Azure DevOps is a parallel thing which we are going to use for managing the entire life cycle of the project. And one important aspect of the entire life cycle of the project is deployment into a platform. And that platform can be Azure. And most important, it need not be Azure. Using Azure DevOps, you can deploy applications in AWS, GCP, Alibaba Cloud, IBM Cloud, Oracle Cloud. I mean, you can deploy anywhere. Using Azure DevOps, you can deploy your application in on-premise. Azure DevOps is a SaaS service, software as a service offering by Microsoft, which is used by people for automating the entire process of project management. As a part of agile process execution, we would use various tools and services, and these tools and services are provided to us through Azure DevOps portal. That's why I'm calling it as a SaaS, software as a service offering. You over there create a project and you start working with it instantly. You don't have to install any software. It's a service offering. Rather, Azure DevOps comes in two offerings. One is the service and the other is a product. The service is what we are talking about. Product is something which we install it in our on-premise setup in case we want to. We can buy a product of Azure DevOps as a software and install it in our infrastructure. We can do that. And some organizations want to probably do that for whatever reason. But most of the time, we are going to use Azure DevOps as a service. So very clearly understand, Azure is different absolutely, and Azure DevOps is different. Let me at the same time take the question, should I know Azure to learn Azure DevOps? Now, if you go back and rewind yourself, what did I say in one of the sentences? Azure DevOps has a set of services for managing project, one of which is most important, used for deploying applications into Azure. Not necessarily Azure, AWS, GCP, anything. Basically, today we want to deploy our applications into cloud, and it can be any cloud for that matter. AWS is not less than Azure, or I would not even say AWS is more than Azure. I don't compare them. They are all different. That's it. Purpose is same and they are different. For me, AWS, Azure are Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Some people like Coca-Cola, AWS. Some people like Pepsi, Azure. Their choice. What they feel is good. Because almost same set of services are there in both. And certain organizations go for multi-cloud platform. This and that. So can Azure become a prerequisite for Azure DevOps? Yes and no. So if you don't know where you are going to deploy the application, it's going to be really difficult for one to actually implement the entire process here. Very swift, very perfectly. But it does not mean you should know them together. You will either learn Azure first and then Azure DevOps, or you learn Azure DevOps and at least side by side learn Azure. Absolutely no problem. And you don't need to have entire knowledge of Azure. Little, very little knowledge of Azure, very little knowledge of Azure I would say is a prerequisite for Azure DevOps. It is not even prerequisite for better understanding. I have seen multiple people who have not learned Azure at all. They know AWS. And through Azure DevOps, they deploy the applications on AWS. Possible. GCP, possible. So is Azure a prerequisite for learning Azure DevOps? Yes and no. Now why I'm saying yes? Because this is a platform. If not Azure, if you know AWS platform, you know GCP platform, you know Alibaba platform, any one platform if you know, it is good enough. You should know how the applications are deployed. You should know what is the difference between infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. You should know that difference. You should know how the application connects to the SQL database, because that is what you are going to do through the DevOps. So basically what you are doing manually, we are automating it. So that is the reason I would say knowledge of Azure becomes important, but not entire Azure. Rather, if you go to the Microsoft site, just search AZ400. Design and implement Microsoft DevOps solutions. This is what I am offering to you people. For this, there is a corresponding exam, which is DevOps Expert. This one. Part of requirement for. So to become an Azure certified DevOps engineer expert, you are supposed to have knowledge of either Azure Administrator, which is AZ104, or Azure Developer, AZ204, and then AZ400. You can take them in any order, doesn't matter. One of these two, and this combination will give you the designation Azure certified, Microsoft certified DevOps engineering expert. That means to become a DevOps engineer, either you should have very good knowledge of infrastructure, which is this Azure infrastructure. If you don't know infrastructure, you should have very good knowledge of development. One of these two is essential, and then you learn this, it will be a smooth journey. Rather, they expect us to have very good amount of experience, maybe 5 years. Generally doesn't happen. People who are freshers and good learning capabilities they have, they can write the exam pretty early. So I would suggest people who are really interested in certification, take some time, go through this URLs. Just search AZ400 on Google. That's it. Go through this study guide. They give you detailed content over here. Everything is in detail. Go through this. It's good to have some time invested. So yes, Azure DevOps, if you want to learn, the prerequisite is either 104 or 204. Either 104 or 204. Now question becomes, how much important is having knowledge of programming language? To become Azure DevOps expert, should I know Java? Should I know .NET? Should I know Python? Should I know Go language? See how many, these are all popular languages today. .NET, that is C#, Java, Python, PHP, Ruby on Rails, Go, right? These are which I recollect immediately. These are the languages which are very popularly used in today's date. Using these languages, we build applications. I can put JavaScript also. JavaScript for building front ends. Sorry. JavaScript for building front ends. Maybe in React or maybe in Angular or some other framework which is very popular today. So all these are different languages through which you are going to develop application, and for this you need to be a developer. You should be able to write code. You should be able to create classes. Inside the class, you should be able to add methods, properties. Through these methods, you should implement logic, which can be presentation logic, which can be business logic, which can be data access logic. Bind the objects all together. These all things you will have to do if you are a programmer, you are a developer. Sound knowledge of a programming language and using that language building applications. We don't need that knowledge for Azure DevOps. As a Azure DevOps or in general DevOps engineer, you are not going to write code. You're not even required to understand the existing code, not even required. Every language, people write code and build it as a project. And after the project is ready, they perform build activity, build, B-U-I-L-D, build. And when they perform a build, they generate some output, which is what we have to deploy into different machines for execution. You need to know that process. How a .NET C# project gets converted into a class library or an executable. The build process. How a Java files will become .class files and eventually will become jar and var. That doesn't take a lot of time to learn. Rather, in languages like Python, you don't even compile, you don't even build. If you want to, you can, but you don't have to. The build process in Python kind of language is just copy. If you are doing Node.js, you will write JavaScript and the JavaScript code has to be packaged. NPM packages you have to use and publish. Lots of JS files will become few short JS files. So this process, how much time it would take? The complicated stuff is writing program. The complicated stuff is not performing a build. And to perform build, there are tools. So this process you have to learn. So let us say in the organization you're working, you are supposed to have knowledge of, they are using Java project. One of the teammates will have to teach you the entire process of building the Java project. You may have to learn Maven, how to use Maven packages, Gradle packages. But because you might have learned DevOps tools using .NET, you cannot go and tell the organization, no, I will not work with you because I know DevOps with .NET, not with Java. That is rubbish. DevOps is independent of the language. Every language has certain common process and this is what you have to perform. That's it. That's what you should know in DevOps. So DevOps gives you opportunity to perform an automated build. I repeat, DevOps gives you an opportunity to perform an automated build and deploy, which otherwise is supposed to be done manually by a developer and a IT team. It bridges the gap which is there between the developers and the IT operations team. Developers are responsible for writing code and the IT operations is responsible for providing infrastructure for this application which is built to be deployed. DevOps does that. That's the beauty of DevOps. Maybe in the next session when I'm going to talk about what is in general DevOps, there I'll explain the same thing much more in detail. But let me conclude. To learn DevOps, you should have knowledge of infrastructure or development. Any one of these two is mandatory. Both of them, wonderful. Little of both of them. I'm not saying you become a Azure administrator and perform that role and then only come to Azure DevOps. You become a Azure developer perform that role for few years and then come to Azure DevOps? No, not necessarily. If you can learn both of them little also, you should be able to perform the DevOps activities pretty well. And the demand is huge. I know people are talking about recession, but those are only on top organizations. They're just taking a opportunity to fire people who are non-productive. But even today, if you go to job portals, you'll see there is a huge demand of Azure DevOps. Rather, honestly, we get so many calls on from people who say we got the job somehow or the other. I don't want to discuss that part, but now they want to perform that job and they are not fit for it. Can you please support us? The way I can support is my knowledge in terms of learning the subject. If you learn the entire course of Deccansoft from scratch to end, we take everything practically from starting. And it all starts with how a project has to be added to a Git repository, a version control system. Actually speaking, the project is supposed to start with Azure Boards. Somehow that section got missed here. Azure Boards is what we are supposed to start with. Once we know Azure Boards, this one. What is this Azure Boards all about? Azure Boards is all about project management. How we can create teams. And then how work items can be created, the tasks, which can be bugs, which can be test cases, features, and how these will be assigned to the team members. Basically, we are creating sprints, breaking an entire project into multiple sprints, with the ability to plan the capacity based on the number of hours which each member would give to the project. Some can be developers, some can be testers, some can be designers. It's a collective effort. Some can be database experts. So how many hours I have in each category and how this have to be used for creating a project. Entire planning can be done over here. Planning and tracking of the progress. So how Azure Boards can be used as a tool to perform that particular task. We are going to see that here. Practically, we will create a project with some epics, features, user stories, use them in assigning to the developers. That means it's the starting point. So once we have that, now comes the role of developer, where Azure Repos can be used, or GitHub can be used, or Bitbucket can be used, or Git Labs can be used, some Git repository, where we are going to store our source code. See, I'm not going to ever work on a project individually. Rare or individual performance project. We always work on a project as a team, where I will contribute my part, you will contribute your part, somebody else will contribute their part. Like that, each and every member will contribute to the same project. And most of the times, a project will be made up of multiple modules, and every module can be done by a different set of teams or different set of people within the organization. So we need something now which can help us in collaborating the code which we are developing. And today, Git repositories are the best options which are used by the people in the industry. Git. So how Git can be used? And we are going to do fairly good deep dive into Git. Rather, I do corporate trainings for Git alone. Only Git trainings I give to big organizations, decently big sized organizations. Teach them how to create code repositories. In code repositories, how to create branches, how pull request has to be created for review of the code, how we can do optimization of this by way of rebase or squash merge we call it. We have advanced topics like cherry picking, resetting code to the past, basically going back in time. We do not like the new code, so we want to go back in time and restore the old code. We can do all that with the code repositories, which are managed by Git. So from basic we'll start and go deep into Git. By the end of this particular chapter, you should be also able to formulate a Git branching policy for your organization. We are going to discuss only 3: feature branching, Git flow branching, forking. But with the knowledge given, you can create your own custom branching policy for your organization based on the needs of the organization. All that we are going to learn over here. So now you know how a Git project is managed, how the collaboration by developers happen, where the code comes at one place eventually. We do development on local machine and we push it to a remote repository. From the local repository, we'll push to the remote repository. So how code moves from local to remote, that's what we are going to learn in this particular chapter. Now that the code is in local repository to remote repository, we want to perform a automated build. See, I use something like Visual Studio and I create a ASP.NET project and I'm working on, let's say, login module to build the login page. Somebody else at the same time might be working on registration page. Somebody else probably is working on change password. But now eventually we want this login page, registration page, change password page to all come at one place and work together. On my machine, I can test how login works. I can't test registration because that's being developed by somebody else parallelly. But eventually, I want to do that integration and bring everything at one place and still ensure that my login module is working properly. So what will happen now? I will check in my code into a central repository. I'll push my code. The other people also will push their code into the central repository. And there we want the code to be built. What we build on local machine, there on the central repository we want to perform a build, and that's where the CI, continuous integration pipelines, come into the picture. So through Azure DevOps CI, continuous integration, the first thing we perform is we perform a build. Build will generate some executable. On that executable, we may further do some testing. I might do unit testing. I might do integration testing. Automated, all automated process. Unit test cases have to be returned for that. Once I have done automated test, things also we would like to perform. We will definitely go for automation testing, code coverage testing. You may not even have heard of these terms, using Kuberchura or Jackako. You might do the compliance tests using Sonar Cloud and White Source Bolt. All these are part of a CI pipeline, continuous integration pipeline. In Azure DevOps, CI and CD pipelines can be built in two ways. One is what we call it as classic, older style of doing it. For beginners, it's more convenient to do it with classic because everything happens on the GUI and you can simply click here and there and do some kind of drag and drop and get the things achieved. But the industry doesn't use classic for new projects. For new projects, if they want to build a pipeline, whether it is CI pipeline or it is CD pipeline, what we use is YAML. So how to work with YAML pipelines, that's what we are supposed to learn over here. Continuous integration using YAML pipelines. Once we know the YAML pipeline, remember what we do using classic, same things we can do with YAML, but YAML has advantages. I may not want to go into that depth, but YAML is like a single file in which everything is present. As you grow more advanced DevOps engineers, you want to look at more YAML. Everything is at one place. Sharing my pipeline with you becomes very easy. I have to only share the YAML file with you. That's it. YAML files can be added to the source safe and versions of YAML files can be managed over there. So that's what we are going to do over here. Continuous integration using YAML. I mean, we will have expertise of both. I would not do justice to only YAML and leave classic, or do justice to classic and leave YAML. My intention would be my students should be able to, my seekers should be able to do either with classic or with YAML conveniently, because we learn the background. We don't learn just the foreground. We just don't learn the steps. We learn why we are doing something. That's very important. I don't want you to work like a robot who is given instructions and they will just do things one after the other and finally they'll get output. No. We want to learn things in a very systematic way. So we are going to build a continuous integration build pipeline using classic and YAML both. Also into those build pipelines, we are going to have quality tests performed, code coverage testing performed, ensure that we don't have technical debts because we don't want to carry dirty code for future. During development itself, we want developers to maintain the code clean and neat, no debts. Debts will accumulate. What people do nowadays, they use one credit card, they make the payment, and to pay the bill of this credit card, they would use another credit card. Debt to debt to debt and debt, and debts never get cleared. I don't know, debts. See, we also don't
Technical
have
debt, DEBT, debt,
DEPTS, right? Yeah, debts.
DEBT, sir. VT, debt.
DBTS. No,
Yes, yes.
is it
Yes.
correct? DPTS, doubt.
Yes, sir, correct.
That's okay.
DEBT. Yes.
Technical debts. What are debts? Something which will never clear. They'll go forever. getting rid of them in the early stages of the project is very important. How do we do that? Using Sonar Cloud, one of the commercial tools. It's not a free tool, but almost every organization will buy that tool, buy that service. Licensing. Lot of development happens today with lots of open source software. Are we following the right licensing policy, or by mistake we are using a wrong license? And is the version safe enough? If that version is used, what all bugs are there in that version which can be harmful to the application in long run? Such reports are generated by white source bolt. So that we are going to see over here. Point is not Sonar Cloud or white source bolt. There are many such tools. I am trying to say build and then ensuring that the build is perfect. That we are going to do with the CI pipeline. And once the CI pipeline is perfect, we would want to now deploy our application. Deploy into various stages. Like I would like to deploy first stage maybe into dev environment. Like I said earlier, dev, QA, QA1, QA2, UAT, and eventually it should go into production. And most important, while moving the application from dev box into production box, we don't want any downtime. Can we do it with zero downtime with best possible reliability? And in the event of something failure, we should be able to roll back quickly. I've gone live and suddenly I realized something has blasted. I should be able to roll back. Such things we are going to do with continuous deployment pipelines. And continuous deployment pipelines also can be classic and can be YAML. Both the options are available. So during this journey, we are going to learn deploying applications in app services, in virtual machines, in Azure functions. All those things we are going to learn over here. How to automate testing, something like UI testing we want to do. That we are going to integrate in our in our CD pipeline, Selenium testing. The project should be deployed. After deployed, we want to perform a automated UI testing using Selenium. We'd go also pretty deep dive, decently deep dive. This is rather not even complete yet. I probably missed on certain options there. But we go deep dive into CI and CD pipelines. This is where most of the interview questions are based upon. What is a agent pool? What is an agent? What are self-hosted agent? What are Microsoft hosted agents? The pros and cons of each one of them. How to work with libraries, having variables and secure files. Each of these things we are going to go deep dive. CI/CD pipeline. A lot of exam questions are going to be part of this. How somebody using Teams should be able to get notified that their approval is required. You don't even have to use Azure DevOps portal. If I am on Teams itself I should get the notification. So that kind of thing we would like to get through the pipeline. If I want to use secure data in the pipeline, for example, I may want to connect to SQL database. And even the DevOps engineer should not have the knowledge of username and password to the database. Or the DevOps engineer is setting up infrastructure through ARM template. How can they use the Azure Key Vault? for reading the keys or secrets in the pipeline. So any kind of secret data can be provided to the pipeline through Azure Key Vault. Azure Key Vault is one service by Azure, but it can be AWS. Working with SQL Server database. How you can use something called as DACPack. How you can run SQL scripts through the pipeline. Infrastructure as code. Nowadays, everybody wants to create infrastructure on the fly, use them for testing and destroy. Don't want to keep it. Because whether it is Azure or AWS or GCP or any other cloud model, it's a pay-as-you-go model. And in pay-as-you-go model, you have to pay for the infrastructure provision for the time it is provisioned. The moment you deprovision it, your billing stops. So why should I let the machines continue for a longer duration when I don't need them after completing the testing? Maybe production machines, I would need it permanently, but not the dev and not the testing, not the UAT. So we want entire infrastructure to be created on the fly. Maybe using ARM templates, using Terraforms. You can use ARM template, you can use Terraform. Any one of these two can be used for creating infrastructure as code. So here we are going to see how ARM templates are going to be executed. Likewise, how Terraform scripts are going to be executed. That also we are going to see in this particular session. Though I will not be teaching what is Terraform here. But if somebody has given you Terraform scripts, how to put it in the pipeline for creation of the infrastructure dynamically. That we are going to see in IAC. In Azure, everything is created as an artifact. The artifacts are nothing but the output of build. When we compile our source code, what we get is build artifact. And this build artifacts can be saved either in the pipeline or they can be saved as packages. Like Java guys will save it as Maven packages. .NET guys will save it as NuGet packages. Python Py packages. The different languages, different types of packages. Azure gives you a special service called as Azure Artifacts, where immaterial of the language, all the artifacts can be stored at a single location. And then these artifacts can be used in rest of the other projects which we are working with. So an organization will store all the reusable code in a central location, which is Azure Artifact, and from there they'll reuse it. So how to create an Azure Artifact and store the packages in the artifact after performing the build through a pipeline. We are going to see that over here. Then there are certain additional topics like Jenkins. We might do a little bit of integration with Azure. To create a backward, like a lot of people have already built Jenkins pipeline. So if they are migrating from Jenkins to Azure DevOps, it cannot happen in one day. So how we can perform build in Jenkins and deployment in DevOps, that we are going to see over here. We are going to cover how a Docker container can be built, basically Docker image can be built and deployed into a registry, which can be Docker Hub registry or Azure registry, Azure Container Registry. And then using that registry, how app services or a virtual machine can have the application. Once we have an image added to a registry, we are going to move on to working with Kubernetes, one of the big time in demand. But in this particular course, let me be honest, I'm not going to teach you containerization, Docker in depth. I'm not teaching you Kubernetes in depth. I'm just teaching you here how to integrate Docker and Kubernetes with a DevOps pipeline. Rather, I'll show you through a pipeline on a click of a button, entire infrastructure will be created and our application will be deployed. Just click of a button, everything will happen. You have to only ensure that the proper configuration is done. That's it. We have a ready-made pipeline created. The entire project I'm going to share with you people. So with you, all this course material will be shared. Every topic, I've created a separate handout. So here you see, we will see on how we can start to end create a live project. I'll give you source code. You can clone from this repository. And once you clone from that repository, you can create the pipeline with step-by-step guidance provided here. This is of course for Classic. And after I teach you in Classic, the assignment is to convert this into YAML. And at the end of the course, you will be pretty comfortable converting Classic to YAML or YAML to Classic. There will be no difference in knowledge. We are also going to see how in Kubernetes, entire AKS cluster can be created using ARM template. The complete template is there. And once the template is creating the infrastructure, how you can deploy the application entirely into the cluster. So basically, guys, the point is, once this course is ready and if you have done it in a systematic manner from beginning to end, start to end, if you have learned in a very systematic manner, you are production ready. You should be able to go and perform the jobs immediately with little support, of course. It would be wrong to say that everything you can do without any support, but with little support from your colleagues, from your leads, you will be definitely be able to perform the task. And if you have done it in a very systematic manner in the class itself, a lot of achievement can happen here itself. The course is most well organized, has given extraordinary results to me in the past from the participants who have done. Quite easily you should be able to clear certification, though for certification there will be some extra topics which you will have to learn on your own. I'll guide you how to do that. Everything I cannot accommodate. There are some theoretical topics which you may have to learn. How to do that learning on your own, I will give you the guidance. There will be some additional effort required. I'll point you to the right material which you can follow through and build that content also. So this is what is the overview of how the entire course. We are going to begin with a project, and same project we are going to keep adding different aspects, like initially only web project, then unit testing will be added, followed by that UI testing will be added, database integration will be done, key vault integration will be done, same project, then Docker integration will be done, the same thing will go into Kubernetes, step by step, same thing will move forward. So you know how different stages of project, different aspects of Azure DevOps are going to be used. That is the whole idea behind creating a course which is very systematic. Yes, I know there will be some standard questions like, how about AZ104? We are not starting AZ104 immediately. It would start sometime in January. So how about dealing with that? Maybe in the last week of December or in the first week of January. I'm planning to run 3 to 4 days full day training. Full day, 9 to 5. Full day training on topics of AZ104, and there all my students of current and past will be able to attend. I'm going to teach everything from ground up. So I'm planning to have some session like that. I'm having a similar kind of session for Terraform, start to end. Azure 104 will be start to end. Just hold your questions, guys. I'll give you a chance to ask all your questions. Just raise your hand in the order. I'll give you a chance to ask your questions. In the Teams, you can raise your hand and you can type your questions in the YouTube, and I'll pick up one by one all the questions from there. I'm trying to answer most of them which are generic. The timings of the class will be same, 5 to 8. I know in certain place in US, something like East time zone, it is 6:30 early morning, but I feel that's the fresh time you can learn. There is no option. That's the best suitable time for multiple countries across the globe. There will be participants probably joining from Australia, there will be people joining from US, there will be people joining from UK. So different parts of the world. So that timing is fixed to keep everybody in comfort zone, 5 to 8. And most important, I want to keep my wife happy by giving her time after 8 p.m. at least on a weekend, so that I can go out with her. So that's one of the reason also. 5 to 8 is the time. Every Saturday and Sunday we are going to meet, and the timings will be same. There will be no changes. Most of the time I avoid taking any holiday unless my throat is a problem, which has been a problem a month back, but now it's all right. I did lose a lot of classes because of the throat problem at times, but I don't have that hectic schedule now going forward, so everything should be all right. Otherwise I don't cancel my classes. I make it a point that I travel on weekdays, not on weekends, to ensure that the classes are taken. Some topics I may want you to watch online, rather all topics I want you to watch parallelly. As I'm teaching you here, you should keep watching them parallelly. Wherever I feel there is a need, I'm going to re-record the content and replace the old ones. But if the content is same in the past and today, I don't have to record and replace it, because when it is done in the best way. That assurance I have. So I take a decision if I want to replace the old content and put a new content, because I'm going to probably teach something new differently, then I take that decision. You don't have to. But for you, the entire course is already available online. For day 1, you will get access to the entire course. Rather, people who are enrolling for different packages, the multiple packages available at Deccansoft, you might go for something like Azure Suite Plus, DevOps Expert Plus. I would request you to go through these. And here in DevOps Expert, you have 104, 400, Docker, Kubernetes. Because I'm not starting 104 immediately, those who are enrolling for the DevOps course will get 104 access immediately without counting that duration till I start the new batch. Suppose I'm starting a new batch in January. Most of the time, post Sankranti, mid of January, I'm going to start a new batch on weekends for 104 also, a regular batch. But I'll try and do one full batch, 3-day, full day session, 3 full day sessions, 8 hours, and see if I can cover 104 topics, especially those things which are important lab for you people. We give you access to the portal, we'll give you access to the subscription required, Azure DevOps portal, Azure portal. So entire stuff we will guide you on how you can use it for practicing. Videos after the training will be accessible to you for 6 months, total 6 months, and all the details are over here. If you want to enroll with EMI facilities, that option is available. You want to make a lump sum payment, you can do that. These are all different certifications which I have. I mean, I did not write the fundamentals here. All these are role-based certifications which I have done. But overall I am like 18 plus certifications which I have done. So please go through this and ensure that you are enrolled into the course by tomorrow. If you have any questions, feel free to connect with Kashmira. And if you are not getting any response from her because batch starts, her schedule becomes very heavy, connect with me. You can directly bypass Sham and directly connect with me in case you're not getting the response for whatever reason, and I'll be glad to take up any kind of questions you may have. You can reach Kashmira, you can reach Shubham, you can reach Tripura. These people are the ones who are supposed to answer your question. Ideally speaking, call them, don't text them. simply call them. When you call, they are bound to give you reply. For me, I would request you to text me on WhatsApp. I'll give you a time because I'll be busy most of the time. I'll be teaching or I'll be doing something, some meetings and stuff. We can set up a time and we can discuss. So it's not a video based learning. It's going to be live training where you will be given chance to ask your questions on Teams. You have to simply raise your hand and one by one I take up all the questions. I ensure that the last person in the class also gets reply to the questions which he is going to ask. He or she is going to ask. That's something which I'll take care of. Yeah, anybody has questions, you can please go ahead. If not, please complete the formality of registration and we can continue the sessions from tomorrow, right from chapter 1. If you have questions and you want to listen to the answers of others, you can stay back. If not, you can start living. I'm done with my teaching what I have supposed to do. I'll start with the main course tomorrow itself. No delays. We are starting the course tomorrow. Same 5 p.m. IST India time.
Sir, I have a doubt, sir.
Just raise your hand, guys. I'll let you take. Yeah, Harinandan, please go ahead.
Yeah, hello. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, what is the duration for that? I think
2 months.
Feb it will be
2 months for sure it will take.
so mid of Feb it will be end.
Mid of Feb, right? Almost end of Feb you can think of. Mid of Feb to be precise, yeah.
And one weekend. If
Say-
I'll miss any class, then
Backup is given to you, right? Day 1 itself we are giving you the entire course as video. So if you miss a class, go back, watch the topic. Check with me what was the topic covered. Go and watch the topic and be prepared for the next session. Even if you attend my class, I would still insist, watch the video. That's the best way of learning. You attend my class, learn everything, go back, watch the video in 1.5x speed or 2x speed, revise everything, read the material, digest everything. It seeps in and you will remember longer. That's how it is supposed to be. Srinivasulu?
actually, yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. So recently I have joined Rahul's AWS course, sir. So like you are planning, like you are organizing most of the Azure platform stuff, like DevOps and other courses, right? Is there any plan to do the same thing for AWS from Rahul, sir?
Check with Rahul only.
Okay.
Mohammad Avri.
Hi, Sandeep. So my question is, if I for this by today itself, like I have already paid the fees before, and if I do it in the next batch of yours, so will I be getting the subscription and the portal access?
We will charge you for that. Nominal fee, something we will charge you. Very nominal, that is. First iteration, it is absolutely free. We take the cost. Second iteration, we charge.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Looks like when you're answered, guys, turn your hands down. I'll take from WhatsApp. I have 2 questions. How many days can you help if we have queries? I mean, if you have queries, even without being a student, you can ask me. Just post it on WhatsApp. To the best of my capabilities, I will definitely answer the queries. That has nothing to do with the course. You may or may not do the course with me. I'm attending from YouTube. Is it not possible for me to talk to you as ask my doubts? Call me. After the class, I'll be available on this number, so you can call me. You can email me for any kind of questions which you may have. Text me on WhatsApp. If I'm not answering the call, I'm there on this number. So do we learn Docker or just Docker integration? If I understand properly, you are telling that automated unit testing methods and integration test methods can be integrated with Azure DevOps. Actually, there are two questions in that. One is Docker. We are not going to learn Docker in this course. We will learn Docker integration in DevOps course. But Docker by itself is a separate course. And if you are opting for the package Azure DevOps Expert Plus, in that Docker and Kubernetes is included. Azure DevOps Expert Plus will have Docker and Kubernetes. So you can go for that. And second thing is, what is the difference if developers take this responsibility rather than informed by Azure DevOps that our unit testing has been failed? Developers only will have to take the responsibility of unit testing failed. Integration of unit testing is what DevOps does, but the failed report has to be shared with developers and they have to resolve the problem. That's how it is. Jagannathan.
Sir, actually, I'm planning to take this Azure DevOps Expert Plus. So you told that the duration will be like 6 months validity, right?
Correct.
So this 6 months validity is like once after the courses gets completed or when the course
6
gets
months
started?
from the time you are enrolling.
Okay, so it means
And
that
repetition of the entire course you can do. Expert Plus is 6 months.
Yeah. So
You
it
can
means that
repeat
if
the
I'm
course in 1 year, but you will not have access to the videos after 6 months.
okay. So one more thing. So you told like you'll be taking the complete live demo, right? So you'll be taking like one project or different types of projects. So based on the
Different.
scenarios.
I'll take one project and try to do most of the things with one project.
Okay.
But in that project only, I'll put web testing project, database project, right?
Okay, different types of scenarios.
Selenium project. I'll keep integrating that into the same project.
Okay, sir.
Serene.
Hi sir. So I'm a .NET developer, sir. So is this I'm just seeing this 204 is related to the development.
If you want to do 204, you have to enroll for the Azure Suite package. Go for this package. Azure Suite, but that doesn't have DevOps. And if you want a combination of that with DevOps, for Suite Plus is there. Go for that.
Okay.
The various packages which are listed under packages section. Go for that. Azure Suite and Azure Suite Plus. Compare these two and compare these four.
Okay.
So you have entire information available over here.
Okay. So are you starting the sessions on this 204
January.
January? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he'll be part of one course, we call it as Azure Suite, where I combine multiple things together and teach.
Okay.
Generally, that happens from 7 to 11 India time, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay. Sure.
Bharat.
Hi Sandeep. I am an ex-student of deccansoft. I trained from you C# and also I trained manual testing, and after that I got a job in MNC. So now I have around 12 years of experience in software testing. So can I work on Azure DevOps? So is it suits for me?
Learn Azure also.
Extra
Learn Azure also. Learn Azure and Azure DevOps. For all testing guys, this is the best option to upgrade. It's a PG for you, post-graduation. When you feel stagnated in your testing profile, Azure DevOps is the best option to move forward. Got it?
Okay. Yeah, got it. Thanks, Sandeep.
Otherwise, you don't have any other option. I mean, not such a close option. Because you already know development life cycle, you know how people do projects. Now you're only upskilling yourself. So Azure and Azure DevOps should be part of your agenda. Harshal.
Okay, Azure means only infrastructure or the
Entire
development
Azure,
also?
12 years, man. If you do only infrastructure, it will be like 3-4 years, guys. 12 years is a lot of time. Plan for Azure architect role. Upskill yourself to the extent now that bigger opportunities unfold for you now. Don't put yourself in a shell. Expand. So grow beyond what is your current scope. So plan for something like Azure architect role. Got the point?
Yes. Okay.
Harshal.
Yes, sir. Actually, I have completed my MCSA course. MCSA 2003 I have done. So one of my friend is doing in Azure Cloud. So I want to ask one thing that it is a cloud based. It is cloud based, but it is like coding like for what it is means. It is we have to create their active directories and all the things. Are there anything like that? Like
No.
only?
Here we do integration.
Okay.
We don't create active directory. But you should understand how active directory users can be added to DevOps and granted permissions. So if you're thinking you will do only Azure DevOps and not Azure 104 now or later, it's a mistake. Do it now or do it later. That's your choice. But do both of them.
So which Azure course is best for me? If I'm as a system admin.
This one.
So which Azure course is for me?
104 and 400.
Azure DevOps expert.
Yeah. You may want to upgrade to this in case you have that's your choice. But this is minimum.
Okay. AZ104 and 400.
Right. Samir?
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
Hello Sandeep, good evening. So if someone of us opting for Azure Suite or Azure Suite Plus, right? So there are different courses clubbed together as a one course, right? So the course structure will be in a sequential order, or
Azure Suite will be together, one unit.
Okay.
DevOps you are doing now.
Okay.
This will be separate course again. Timings will be different for this.
So you will start with AZ104, then AZ204.
No. I club all of them and teach.
Okay.
AZ104, few topics, 204, 305. It's a service based training.
Okay.
So everything will be clubbed together. So what I do is 7 to 9 I take topics of 104 and 9 to 11 on Sunday and Saturday I take advanced topics.
Okay.
So that's how I split.
So it is a kind of a mix structure.
It's a Azure course. It is not confined to only one role. You get the complete picture of Azure.
Okay. So when is the so basically I'm 104 certified already, and I'm trying to plan to learn.
Join the current batch itself. If you're joining today, start learning from tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So it's going to be a good revision for you. And you will definitely learn a lot more than what you know.
Okay.
That assurance I'll give you.
Sure.
Pawan?
Sure, thanks.
Okay, Sandeep, good evening.
Good evening.
So my question is, actually I'm planning to join this course to complete my AZ400 certification. So during this course, are we also discussing the questions those were asked in the
Those I'll teach in the class itself. Whenever relevant, I'll keep talking about it. And if you're looking at explicit questions, go to Azure A2Z.com. You have the entire bank here.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Complete set you will find here. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Gudusa, turn your hands down. All technical questions. I see Ashok, you're asking a lot of technical questions. I'll let them to be discussed either in WhatsApp group or maybe You can call me in person, but I will not be able to take them here. I got the below script from somewhere starting June 30. What I don't know. Authentication. ADAL is old. ADAL is replaced with MSAL. So that's the point. That is correct. What you are reading is correct though. So you are supposed to use MSAL now in place of ADAL. Can I take Azure DevOps? I am Azure administrator. Rather, Azure administrators or Azure developers have a natural extension into Azure DevOps. That certification, and then Azure DevOps, you become Azure DevOps expert. Harshal.
Hi Sandeep, Gurusa here.
Yeah.
My question is actually, I am belongs to the background of infrastructure engineer. So just I want to know how DevOps will help us to skill our future job.
It's an extension. That's what I said, right? You're right now provisioning infrastructure.
Okay.
Now, on that infrastructure, we want to deploy applications in an automated way. That's what is Azure DevOps.
If I want to update the future as an architect role,
then go for only architect. Don't get into DevOps then. I mean, DevOps is something which is big time in demand. That's why people go for it. But for you, both the roadmap, both the roads are open. DevOps or architect, or DevOps and architect. See, I am a DevOps expert. I am an architect. I am a developer. I am an administrator. So I know the entire life cycle. From start to end, every aspect of cloud and application development I know. And that's why I'm able to speak so fluently about the content. If I was only administrator, did not know development, imagine. If I was only developer, did not know administration, it would be somewhere holes, gaps will be left. But I know entire life cycle properly.
Okay.
So that gives us an edge. So with years of experience mounting, these demands are more and more increasing now from the candidates also.
Correct.
So for people with 8+ years of experience, I generally recommend, if they can afford the fees, they should and must go for Azure DevOps, Azure Suite Plus package, minimum. These are minimum things required now on a profile of a person.
Yeah, candidate must have the multiple technology knowledge.
You are supposed to be jack of multiple, master of one. You cannot be jack of all and master of none. You are supposed to be master of one, jack of all. The times have changed.
Okay. Thank you, Sandeep.
Yeah. Harshal. Looks like we are done. I have one more question. I have 12 years of experience in Linux and storage administration. I would like to choose Azure Suite plan. It includes AZ204, and for this I need to have developer knowledge. See, it is like you going for a buffet and you find lot of items there. It does not mean you have to eat all. You cannot reject a buffet because you cannot eat all of them. You choose what you want. And some items you only taste and leave it. So topics of 204 for people who are not coming from programming background would be like, know them, that's it. You don't have to go deep dive into them. And when you know them, they are there, you get an advantage of easy architecting solutions. That's the reason we recommend people who are planning for architect to also go through this cycle. Sushma.
Hi Sandeep, I am a developer, so I have 10+ years of experience in development. So what course do you recommend for me? Microsoft.
Rather .NET developer?
Yes, I'm a .NET developer.
Go for gold membership. Blindly trust me and go for gold membership. You can do multiple courses. Microservices being the best of all.
Yes, okay.
Microservices using .NET Core, Docker, Kubernetes, and Of course, Azure and all these are default. So go for gold membership if you can afford the fees.
Okay.
Or minimum, otherwise Azure Suite Plus. Minimum is this.
Azure Suite Plus. Okay. When is that batch going to start?
Batches are running continuously. Like if you join, you'll join this topic now. Docker Kubernetes are happening parallelly by Rahul, but you will not be able to attend them now. So you have to keep an eye on batches here. Tomorrow I'll be adding a lot of batches over here. A lot of January calendar will come up here.
Okay. But I'm interested in learning the Azure DevOps as well.
Then
So
join today.
is it 400? Is it 400?
Join now.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was a full stack developer 2 years ago. For the past 2 years, I was not actively involved in IT. Now I've taken Azure DevOps. Can it help me to restart my career? Why restart? You're only extending. That's it. It's not a restart, Mohammed. Don't even use that word restart. Restart is a problem. You're just continuing the journey. You took rest for a while, now you're continuing. And yes, it's definitely a good choice. I think that's all, guys. I'll let you go here. In case you want to reach me out, I've already shared my number. Feel free to get back on WhatsApp. If needed, we can also talk today. Post this class, I'm free for at least a couple of hours. Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.